940. So what we're going to do today is learn how to do a 940. So we're going into Moodle. We're opening our Banner Drugstore payroll register. We're going to use that as a basis. And our ultimate goal is going to be to actually learn how to prepare a Form 940. Just in the way of refreshing, can anybody tell me what a 940 reports? I'm sorry? Yep, just FUTA taxes, not SUTA. How often do we file it? Annually. It's due by January 31st, and we send it to the, I don't even bother with that, but yes, that's the caveat. And who do we send it to? You think, but you send it to the IRS. Okay, so just to clarify that, because I know that's kind of confusing, only the W-2s and W-3 go to the Social Security Administration. Everything else goes to the IRS. What are the deposit rules with your 940? If you get over what? Does everyone have to deposit quarterly? No, only if you get over, it's $500. Okay, so if all year you follow it and you don't get to $500, you don't deposit. Okay, so has everybody had a chance to get that payroll register up? Let's see here. I should probably save this. Okay, and then let's go get the payroll register. I think once you get it up, don't you have to rotate it then? Right click and rotate, rotate, rotate. Okay, so let's just take a peek at this, and then I'll show you how to set up a schedule. And the schedule is what you're going to use in order to prepare the 940. So how often are these folks paid per quarter on this payroll register? 6 times a quarter, right? Semi-monthly. So how many times a year? Yep. So they're paid 6 times a quarter, 24 times a year. So what I have to do is I'm going to take this payroll register. You can see down here at the bottom I gave you an additional piece of information that says that the 940 deposits were made timely. This is a second quarter payroll register, but we're making an assumption, which is obviously wouldn't be accurate in the real world, that this is the same payroll every single time. Okay? What we have to do when we make our FUTA schedule is 2 things. First off, we have to figure out what the liability is quarterly so that we can understand whether they had to deposit or not. And secondly, we need that because if you look at the second page of the 940, you can see that if you're over $500, you need to fill out a quarterly schedule. So we're going to need to, let me pull that back up. So you can see on the second page here in part 5, if your liability is over $500, then we've got to figure out what we've done per quarter. So what we're going to do, you guys are going to have that payroll register in front of you, and then you're going to take a notebook and turn it on its side so that it's landscape, and I'm going to show you how to set up the schedule to analyze the payroll register for FUTA purposes. So the first thing we're going to do is set up some headings. And the headings are the 4 quarters and then total. Now, again, in the real world, your quarters probably aren't going to look the same unless you've got people that are on salary. But like these folks are overtime or have overtime, they're not going to be the same time after time. We're just assuming that. And then put the name of your employees down the side. Crete, Crowley, Klamath, and who? Okay, is that the right order? And then we're going to want to get some headings, or I'm sorry, some subtotals. And here's what they're going to look like. Total wages. Total food wages. Why aren't those going to be the same number probably? How much do we pay tax on for FUTA? Only up to $7,000 per person per year, right? So if I pay you over $7,000, your gross wages aren't going to be the same as your FUTA wages. Then we're going to figure out our FUTA liability. And then the last line is going to be what our deposits are. And you know the deposit rules. So you're going to need 2 different color pens to do this, or like a pen and a pencil, or does everybody have 2 different color pens? Or a pen and a pencil? Let's see what I got. Yeah, I'm not much help. You'll be fine. The first thing that I want you to do is plug in the quarterly wages for each person and then total them and then total by quarter. So, for example, how much did Creek make for one payroll? His gross, yeah. Does that include the overtime? Yeah. So what are you going to multiply that by to get his quarterly wages? By 6. So go do that. Fill in this chart. Should be able to do that pretty quick, and then we'll move on.
So we don't use the right? We're just doing that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's just an exercise in can you run your calculator. The only thing that's tricky about this at all is you have to make sure that you're converting the payroll register to quarters. So if they were paid bi-weekly, you wouldn't be multiplying by 6, you might be multiplying by either 6 or 7, I'd have to tell you. If it was weekly, it'd be 13. If it was monthly, it'd be 3. So you have to just pay attention to how often is the payroll register you're looking at run for. On the exam, I might even be so kind as to just give you the quarterly numbers. I don't know. But you have to make sure that if you've got to do the conversion, you multiply by the right number. Other than that, piece of cake, right? Okay, step 2, and if you've got a different color pen, use it, is we're going to try and figure out the food wages, right? And each person, the employer has to pay food on each person up to 7 grand per person per year, right? So in the first quarter, does anybody cap? No. So food wages are the same as total wages, right? Everyone with me? In the second quarter, does anybody cap? Yeah, who caps? Irvine and Klamath both cap. They go over 7 grand. So I'm just going to put a little line through them. And I'm going to pencil in how much of his 3588 and how much of her 3528 do you think are taxable for FUTA? And I'm just going to write that in over here. So you've got to take into consideration how much they've already earned, and we only pay tax up to 7 grand. So how much of that is going to be taxable? How much did you get for Irvine?
3,412.
Yep. And how much for Klamath?
3,172.
3472, right? Does anybody not know where those numbers came from? Okay, so then can you get total, okay, oh, and then the other thing is, once somebody caps, what are the subsequent quarters going to look like? In other words, in the third quarter, what is Irvine's food wages? 0. So you can just, once somebody caps, go fill in their zeros. And total the food wages for quarter 2, please. $13,022. Yeah? Okay, can you finish this chart now based upon what I've showed you? 24, and 0. How do you do a reasonableness check on this number? Like, does that make sense to you? Why? Yeah, 4 employees, they all made more than 7 grand, 4 times 7,000 is 28,000. So my point being is do a reasonableness check. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, how am I going to get the liability by quarter now? And you have to ask me a question. Very good. Those are exactly the 2 questions. So for those of you listening on tape, the 2 questions that were asked were A, did they pay their suit on time? Yes, because if they hadn't paid their suit on time, then what? What goes down if they haven't paid their suit on time? Their SUTA credit, thereby leading to their net FUTA going up, right? So that was Kelly's comment. And then Josh said the other question that we need to ask is, are they in a state that's in Title 12 default? And they're not. So what do I multiply wages by to get liability? .6%, which is 0.006 in your calculator. So you should now be able to finish off the 2 bottom rows because you know how to get the liability and you know what the deposit rules are. So see if you can finish off the 2 bottom rows. Okay, so liability, I got your 106 and a 3. And I don't have to make a deposit because I'm not at 500 bucks. Then 104.18, and I still haven't gotten to 500, so don't need to worry about it. $13.79, still not at 500 bucks. Are these the right numbers? You guys are looking at me funny. Oh, you know what? I bet you, this is probably so old that it's when we were still paying 0.8. Sorry. You guys are all like, nobody is smiling and nodding. Okay. What's the first quarter?
I got 79.52.
Okay. Okay, and second quarter?
78.13.
Okay.
And then 14.54.
14.54. So that should total to 154.
172.
Should be a nice even number. 28,000 times 0.006. 168. 1724 times 0.006. 1034. And again, your reasonableness check is 28,000 times 0.006 equal the total, right? Foot and cross foot. So let's just check that. 13, 1034. We're off by a penny, so just plug that penny in wherever. So, in essence, what am I telling you here? Did we ever have to deposit during the year? No. So when do we pay the $168? We pay it with the $940. Okay, and you fill out a little voucher, which is called a 940V for voucher, and you just send in a check with your tax return. Okay, when you do a 940, and once you do this, it's a piece of cake doing the form, but you have to do this right to get the numbers to move it into the 940. Okay, is everybody ready to move on and actually fill out the tax return now? Okay, cool. So start on the top, just put in the name of the company, and I think I gave you an EIN on the register. Okay, and then obviously you'd fill in the address and the city and the state and the zip. Okay, part 1. Everybody with me? Tell us about your return. If any line does not apply, leave it blank. See instructions. Okay, if you had to pay state unemployment tax in one state only, enter the state abbreviation. So we're going to obviously be putting in Montana. And then you can see line 1B and 2, if you had to pay SUTA to more than one state, remember we talked about that multi-state employer? Then you've actually got to fill out the Schedule A that goes with the 940. But we're not multi-state, but if you are, you have to check that box, line 1B, and then it tells you you have to complete Schedule A. Also, in number 2, if you paid wages in a state that is subject to a credit reduction, check here, and then you've got to fill out Schedule A. Well, what is credit reduction again? I think that's if you're in one of those states that are in Title 12 default, but I'm not. So, okay, part 2, line 3, total payments. This is gross wages for everybody for all year. What number do you think goes in there? Yeah, that was the gross for everybody all year, 53016. Now just for giggle's sake, let's jump down to line 7, and it tells us that line 7 is line 3 minus line 6. And I don't have anything in 6 yet. But I do know what line 7 wants. It wants total taxable FUTA wages. Where do we get that? Yeah, I think that's the 28,000, isn't it? So now can we back into line 6? What they want to know here is if you paid $53,016 and 28 grand of that's taxable for FUTA, how much of your gross wages weren't taxable? Well, it's the difference between those two numbers. Yes, you're just backing into it. So A minus B equals C, and we have A and C. $25,016, yeah. So, and then it tells us in line 6 that that's a subtotal of lines 4 and 5. So which of those two lines above it do you think that that 25,016 comes from? Is it payments exempt from FUTA or total of payments made to each employee in excess of 7,000? Yeah, I think it's that total of payments made in excess. So that number isn't exactly on our chart, but we can back into it, can't we? Otherwise, so if you're making notes for yourself to study later, first you fill in line 3, right? That's your total gross. Then we jumped down to line 7, didn't we? And we filled out our total FUTA. And then we backed into line 6. So first you do line 3, second you do line 7, third you do line 6. And then don't forget to fill that into line 5. You've got to tell the IRS why is $25,016 not taxable? Is it because it was a pension plan or fringe benefits? No, it's because that's how much I pay people over $7,000 per person per year. Okay, ready to roll down here? Line 8, FUTA tax before adjustments. You can do the multiplication again, but you've already done it, haven't you? Yeah. This is the part in here for adjustments. This is if you if you have different laws for SUTA than you do for FUTA in your state. We're not going to have any of that. Number 11, or line 11, if credit reduction. So this is if you have to go and calculate the amount of a reduced SUTA credit because you're in a state that's been in Title 12 default. And you're going to have this for your homework. We didn't do the 940 at the end of Chapter 5 for today, right, because we hadn't practiced it. But the one that we're going to be doing with Chapter 5 homework does have a Schedule A with a credit reduction. It's super easy. Just follow the instructions and then carry that number over here. But in this easy little example, we don't have anything in here. So when you come down to line 12, and again, it's really about reading instructions, add lines 8, 9, 10, and 11. Well, I didn't have any adjustments, so it's just the same, isn't it? Line 12, how much did I deposit for the year? Oh, sorry, 13, yes, pardon me. Line 13, how much did I deposit? Did I? I put $28,000? No, that would be silly. 0, right? I didn't deposit anything because I didn't have to. Therefore, line 14, what's my balance due? $168. Next page. Don't forget to put your trade name and your EIN back up here. And then on line 16, it says, report the amount of your FUTA tax liability for each quarter. Your FUTA tax liability for each quarter. Do not enter the amount you deposited. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have started by reading part 5. Report your FUTA tax liability by quarter only if line 12 is more than $500. Is line 12 more than $500? No, so do I have to do part 5? No. Part 6, may we speak with a third-party designee? So this is if you own the company, you're telling the IRS, it's okay if you call my CPA or my bookkeeper or my employee or whatever. And then basically we're just going to go right to line 7, and as if we own the company. And when is this due by again? That's not, let me put the title in. At any rate, yeah. And then if you paid somebody to do this tax return, they're required by the IRS to put in their information. Piece of cake. Now, what are the ways that I can file this? If I e-file it, what am I going to have a problem with? I haven't deposited all year, have I? So then I owe money. That's exactly what you would want to do. You'd want to electronically deposit the 168 and then e-file the 940. Or you could go the old-fashioned way and clip the coupon, the 940B, and print this out and send it to our 940s here. I'll go to Ogden, Utah. Okay, let's try another one. And I'm just going to let you work on it, and then we'll take a look at the homework. So the next one is also posted on Moodle, and that is Sure Value Payroll Register. So if you pull that up, and then make your chart, and then do your 940, right? The key to the Sure Value one is make sure that you read how often they're paid. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep the tape rolling. I'll probably give about 15 minutes of dead time here for you to work on this at home, and then I'll show the answer, and we'll go through the chart and the answer, and then that will be this recording. I'm passing that around.
Just for purposes, just put your own name.
Yeah, the company name gives on it. They get a total percent, it gives
Yeah, it was like,
additional signers.
yeah, it was like Carlos or something.
But yes, they'll give what we just
There was nothing on the page. $15. Right, but yeah.
It's still an immature knowledge.
So I am going to start.
This somewhere on your computer.
Oh, do you have that? It must be on the.
Is that on the K one?
No, okay. Will you just email me? So did you guys all catch that they're monthly?
Yeah, and I was wondering, the 2 questions for the,
Oh, yeah, I have to tell you that. So they paid on time and they're not in a Title 12 state. Yeah.
We're not, are we doing continuing problem B? No, just A.
No.
Just A. Oh, okay, because you have B in here and I'm
Oh.
like, oops. Thinking I missed something.
So only 2 caps, right? Fourth quarter for Hopi and Mojave. Okay, why don't you guys tell me the numbers for the liability? So for the first 3 quarters, how much is my food a liability?
4165.
And then the fourth quarter?
3673.
36.
3673.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that totals to?
16168.
Okay, and again, because we never got to 500 bucks, we're going to actually deposit or send it in with the 940. Can I move on to the actual tax return? Did everybody get this far? Okay, so So then, of course, up here, you're going to change this to sure value, right? Yeah, sure value hardware. And then I've got so many papers here and I have no working space, so bear with me. And then just, I'm not going to change this because I don't have it in front of me, but you obviously would change the EIN.
I have a question, Mark Topper.
Go ahead.
They wanted their name and then the trade name underneath.
Yeah, that's like, the Yum Yum Corporation doing business as Taco Bell, because the Yum Yum Corporation owns, Taco Bell and, I don't know, a bunch of other fast food places. So, yeah, that's, I would have to tell you that. It's called DBA, doing business as. Okay, and so Josh asked again to clarify, make sure that there was nothing in part one. So my total, I tell you, I got no working space up here, 27,768. And then I jump down to line 7 and I key in the amount of the FUTA wages. Then all I've got to do is find the difference between those two numbers, which looks like it's about, what, 820? And does that go on line 4 or 5? Line 5, total payments made to each employee in excess of 7,000. And therefore, my FUTA tax, Haley, can you tell me that one number one more time?
161,868.
Thank you. And so that's going to carry down to line 12. I didn't deposit anything, so that's due. Don't forget to change your name. And your EIN, whatever that is. I don't need to do part 5 because I didn't get over $500, and then I just come down and sign it. Alrighty, so I am going to, any questions about this? Pretty straightforward. And you'll have to do one of these on the exam, and I'm not going to give you a Schedule A or a multi-state or something we didn't practice. It's going to be something pretty straightforward like this. But for whatever reason, whenever I go through this problem in class or this exercise, everybody sits and smiles and nods, yeah, I get it, and like 2 or 3 of you will show up at the test and not even know how to start doing the schedule. So if you're not clear on the schedule or you need more practice on the schedule, I know how exciting can this be, but re-listen to this tape and practice it again. Okay, so I'll post, I post my lectures so that if you need to re-listen to them. Okay, with that, I'm going to say goodbye to the online people.